and close that private chat box. Hello, everyone.
Hello there, folks. Hope everyone's doing well on this Saturday afternoon. And so we're joining you from West Central Texas. And we're just glad that we can make this happen. Wish we could be with you all in person. That is certainly the more fun way to do this, but at least we're making it happen through the magic of technology. So we'd love to hear where people are coming from, where you're joining us. So go ahead and hit up in that chat box, either on YouTube or Facebook, and let us know where you're reaching out to, where you're logging in from. So this presentation is one of 3 that we're going to be doing this weekend. This is on Solar 101, sizing your solar powered system for your RV. So when we started our journey in, oh my gosh, we got Sherry Williamson from Boone, North Carolina.
Wow, that's our hometown.
That's our hometown.
Folks.
Welcome to see ya. Great to see you. Lowell, Michigan, awesome. Lots of folks from Michigan should be joining us. Hard to think about solar in the winter in Michigan, but you know what?
It does work.
It does work. It's pretty amazing.
But there's a reason why we come down here
Exactly.
to Texas or the Southwest for the winter, because we do have more sunshine and we are as solar powered as our camper is. So
now, when we first started this adventure 8.5 years ago, and we would pull up to a campsite and we'd get out our solar panel and we'd set it up, we got some funny looks. People were not exactly certain what we were doing. They'd kind of walk by with their dog and they'd turn around and they'd walk by again and they'd look at us and they'd look at what we were doing, and then they'd sort of get the courage and say, "Hey, is that a solar panel?" And we'd be like, "Yeah." And they'd say, "Does it work?" And I'd be like, "No, I'm just setting this out for my health." No, it's, of course it works. And then they say, "Well, what does it run?" And we would explain the size of our system and how the small panel would power it. But times have changed. Oh, how they've changed. And so have the questions. So now people, when they approach us about our solar panel, they realize that it works, that it's reliable, and they want to know how they can get into it as well. And that's why we put this seminar together, because we certainly were not the first people to use solar, but we were an early adopter, and now it's gone all across the RV spectrum.
Yeah, it's amazing what has changed in the last 8 to 10
It's been
years.
amazing.
Yeah,
what we've seen on the road.
Fantastic, actually.
And the amount of people that are using solar to power their lives.
Absolutely. Cool. Well, in addition to the Grand Rapids Camper, Travel, and RV Show, we'd also like to thank Renogy Solar as being one of our sponsors for today's seminar. And we want you to grab something to write with, because we're going to be throwing some light math and physics your way and a whole bunch of resources over the next hour. So I want to just have you prepared with a pen and paper in hand to write a few things down. Now, we are going to have a lot of resources available after the presentation at the link that's right here on your screen, but those will be available later. But for now, grab that pen and paper so you can write some notes down. And we're going to be discussing the components that you're going to need in order to create your own solar powered system. And we're going to help you determine what the size of your system is going to be. So we have our system, other people have much larger systems. We're going to help you figure out exactly what you need. And that's the key to it. And be sure to stick around to the very end, because we're going to be giving out our promo code for Renogy Solar, and that'll save you about 10% on your total bill with Renogy if you end up going with those products. They are fantastic. We love them and use them every day, and want to be able to get you that 10% off as well. Now, we're going to help you envision a life without needing an electrical hookup. Now, we use it on occasion, but we love to boondock. We love to get out there. We love to stay in primitive campgrounds, and having solar power allows us to do that. We have just had so many amazing adventures, camping, boondocking, and just other things along the road by not needing to plug in. It's just been fantastic.
So quick introduction about us. My name is David Hutchison. Please call me Hutch. This is my beautiful wife, Sherry Gagliardi. And we are coming to you from the inside of our 1957 vintage canned ham Sportcraft camper trailer. It is 15 feet long from the tongue to the tail, and it has a total inside living square footage of 72 feet. It has no bathroom. We lovingly refer to our home as Hamlet. Together, we are freedom in a can.
So in the last 8.5 years, just to give you an idea of where all we've gone, we have had the opportunity to go to 4 different countries. Of course, we left Hamlet behind for those visits, except to Canada. 49 states, 8 Canadian provinces, 51 national parks here in the US, in addition to 10 national parks in Canada, countless national monuments, national seashores, national lake shores, more than we could possibly count at this point. But we feel like we've just barely scratched the surface of what there is to see out there. Even though we have experienced all this,
Absolutely.
We keep adding things to our bucket list, which is amazing. We'll meet people that say, have you been to? And well, we haven't, and we got to go
put it on the list.
Check that out. Exactly.
So when we took off in 2012, we thought we were going to do this lifestyle only for like a year, maybe a year and a half tops. And well, 6 months in, we were pretty certain that we could not ever return to our traditional life in a traditional home and our former 2 careers, which were in higher education at Appalachian State University. On this lifestyle, we quickly became hooked. It was so much fun. It was so affordable, and it became, for us, really sustainable.
So back in 2010, when we bought this camper, which we can hardly believe was over a decade ago now, and started the renovation process, we knew that we wanted to run on solar power. That was key to the renovation of that. But we didn't know much about it. All we knew is that you needed to have a solar panel to collect energy and a battery to store it. Now, how many of you can relate to that level of knowledge with regards to a solar powered system? Anybody out there, raise your hand, thumbs up, say yes or no. That's where we were at a decade ago. There was precious little in the way of online resources available for people who were non-engineer types. If you had a background in physics or engineering, no problem. There was plenty of stuff out there. But if you did not have that background, it was not very accessible. So we drew upon some friends in our hometown in Boone, North Carolina, called IonCon. They are a sustainable design company, and they helped us put together our very first solar-powered system. So you do not need a friend in the solar industry anymore, because guess what? You have us, and we have created all kinds of resources. In addition to seminars like this, we've got blogs and videos and such that we post on a regular basis. And we'll help you get started. And I see some names popping up there of folks that we've actually already helped. So thanks for tuning in again to see us today. Now, we've learned a ton about solar over the last 8.5 years. And we teach seminars like this. Now, we used to be university educators, so education is in our background. We have just changed to that and have done a lot of RV solar education and other types of things. And they've got some other seminars coming up this weekend. So a lot of what we've done is some how-to videos, some step-by-step blogs, and things like that. And we also, in addition to being educators, we are ambassadors and affiliates for Renogy Solar. And it just allows you to camp wherever you want. It's simple, it's reliable. And again, we've helped hundreds of people across the nation at this point figure out how to size their system and how to buy the right equipment for their system that's going to work.
Okay, Derek, if you'll bring up that PowerPoint. So we've got our able assistant running the show behind the screen. Derek, thank you so much with the ShowSpan crew. We're going to get right into the 4 components you need to run on solar. And this is any off-grid solar system is going to need these 4 components. The first is where it all starts, solar panels. They collect the sun's energy that goes through a charge controller. That's the second component. That's kind of the brains of the system. You have a battery, which stores that energy, or batteries in a battery bank. And then the fourth thing is an inverter. These are the 4 basic components that go to any off-grid solar system. So whether you're building an off-grid cabin, whether you're in an RV or a van, you're going to have some aspect of these 4 components to go ahead and build your off-grid system.
Okay, Derek, you can switch to the next slide. All right, so let's start off with the solar panel, because this is where it all starts. When the sunshine hits a panel, it begins an electrical current, which can be used to directly power an appliance or to charge up a battery. And we do both depending on what the situation is and what time of day it is. Now, this is a 100-watt folding solar suitcase. So this thing folds in half and it has a handle on it. And then we can store it away when we don't need it or put it back out. We actually have an extension cord that goes with it. Now, you might have seen a visitor pop up in the back of the screen here.
Couldn't resist.
Couldn't resist today to get in on the Bernie meme train. A friend of Hutch's from high school made this for us and sent it to us the other day and used this picture and surprised us with it.
And it just happened to be the one we were going to use
for this presentation, so we couldn't resist. So thank you, Bernie, for joining us in Maine. This is a picture from autumn in Maine, I think last year. Yeah, 2 years ago, year and a half ago, I guess at this point. And yeah, he came from Vermont to Maine to join us there. So thank you for that.
One of the reasons that we use the folding solar suitcase is that we don't have an air conditioner in our camper. And when we have that portable one out, we can park the camper in the shade and we can keep the solar panel out in the sunshine. We can move that panel around to find the best spot for sunshine so that we can charge up while we're going. And we don't have to then, we're using some of that passive cooling of the forest canopy to keep our trailer cool in the summertime.
Yeah, keep the camper cool, keep the
All right,
solar panels.
let's move on to the next slide. Perfect. Now the next component, the charge controller. These are the brains of the system because a solar panel is just pushing out voltage. And that voltage goes up and down as a result of clouds passing across the sun. Throughout the day, there's going to be a variation of voltage. And the charge controller regulates that voltage so that the battery is optimally charged. So it's a very essential component. They're not very expensive. There's a lot of really cool features that different charge controllers have. We use, as you can see here, the Renogy Wanderer 30 amp charge controller, and it connects with a Bluetooth module. And the Bluetooth module allows us to use our smartphone, and you can advance there you go, perfect. You can use your smartphone to then monitor the charge status of your battery and the amount of power that you're getting off of your solar panel. And that helps us kind of move the panel around to get that optimal charge if we're at a campsite that has a little bit of shading over top.
And this app is free when you purchase the module, so it's an easy download from Renogy. And there's a couple different versions of it at this point. But okay, we can switch to the battery. Yes, so this is where you're going to store your energy. Now, you may have one battery, you may have multiple batteries. We'll go into that later, but it's going to be a deep cycle battery. Okay. And we used to have a flooded lead acid battery when we first started. They're also known as wet batteries when we first started this adventure. And a couple of years ago, we upgraded to the lithium iron phosphate battery, and we love it. So this is the 50 amp hour lithium iron phosphate deep cycle battery from Renogy.
And the last component in the 4 components is the inverter. So solar panels, batteries, they produce and store direct current. And that is a different kind of current than comes from the outlets in our homes. So if you want to run anything that has, your standard plug that would plug right into that outlet at the house, you're going to need an inverter because what it does is it converts that 12 volts of DC power, that direct current power, into 110 volts of alternating current. And we use a Renogy 700 watt inverter. This powers 2 separate outlets in our rig so that we can plug in our laptops, we can charge up our AA and AAA batteries, we can run an electric blanket on those cold nights, heating pad, and even like our immersion blender, which is really our only kitchen appliance. And if you want to see that kitchen appliance in action, come back at 3 o'clock Eastern time today to see our outdoor cooking seminar.
It's a lot of fun.
And if you're writing all of this down, trying to keep up, don't bother, because if you'll go to our website, which is freedominacan.com, you can stay on the whole system slide. There you go, perfect. If you go to freedominacan.com, you can then search for our system, and it's got all the products, it's got all of the specs and diagrams for how our solar system works. But here is the entire inside components of our electrical system, and it all resides under where Sherry is sitting. So we've got the charge controller, the battery, the inverter, all of that is inside, and the solar panel, of course, needs to be outside to collect that solar energy. We've also added a small fuse box, some extra wiring, a USB charger that is up in the in our cabinet, and those didn't add that much. All in, we're about $1,000 for this entire system, including the 50 amp hour lithium phosphate battery,
which is about half of that $1,000,
right.
But it is absolutely worth it. Cool. Okie doke. So we can go back, Derek, to us. Completely. There we go. Fantastic. Okay, so while our system is very small, it definitely meets our needs. But you may need a bigger system. And this is where the seminar comes in, is to help you figure out how to size your own system. So you're going to need to do a little bit of homework. And this is where we are going to throw some light math and physics your way. It's going to stretch your brain just a little bit. Now,
if it's been a while since high school physics.
It's probably been a while, since high school physics. We're making that assumption, of course.
I don't remember much from that class.
Right. Now, I was good at math, but I never even took physics. I was more interested in biology and chemistry, and I kind of wish I did, because now it has a very practical application. But it is very light. I promise. We are not going to overwhelm you. We are educators, and our whole goal here is to help you understand this and be able to teach it to other people. And if you can follow a recipe that has a number of different steps, you can absolutely follow how to do this. Okay. So Derek, you can go ahead and bring up the chart.
Perfect. That's it.
There we go.
Great. Okay, so we're going to define a couple of key terms for you in case you don't know these. So we're going to define volts, amps, watts, and watt hours. These are important to know because they're going to help you size your system. These are different units that measure different aspects of the electricity and how we use it. And to understand these terms, we're going to use an analogy. And that is something we've all done, which is take a shower. And we're going to talk about these terms in terms of the effectiveness of a shower. So let's look at volts. Volts is like water pressure. And water pressure would be measured in pounds per square inch. And that's the pressure at which liters of water are being pushed through that shower head. Amps, it's short for amperes, but amps, it's the flow. So volume per minute, liters of water per minute. And that's what's coming through the shower head. Watts is the product of volts times amps. So this is the effective work. How does that shower with its pressure and its flow, how does it do a good job at getting you clean and giving you a satisfying shower? That's what that is. Watt hours is simply the watts times the length of time in terms of hours that you can take a shower at that flow and at that pressure. Simple analogy, but it helps you understand in terms of electricity how these terms are applied. Now we're talking about this so you can get your head around your final number, because what we're shooting for is that magic number, the watt hours, so that you would use the watt hours that you would use in an average day. For some of you, this number is going to be really high, and for others, it's going to be really low. And it just depends on how you use it, and it's that simple. All right, Derek, let's come back to just us. Perfect.
All right. Now, we could not be educators without bringing up the whiteboard.
Of course.
I hope that everybody can see this okay. So we're going to use this to give you some examples of what we use in Hamlet. So again, watts in green equals volts in blue times amps in red. Okay, I apologize if you're colorblind, so you cannot see the color there, but you can see it written there. Okay. So let's say we know the amps of something. We're able to look on an appliance and we know the amps of something. How would we get to watts? Well, we'd need to know whether or not it was a 12-volt appliance, like our fan, or if it was our immersion blender, which is a 110-volt appliance. So it's either 12-volt or 110-volt, more than likely. And if you know that, then you can figure out your watts. So if you know your amps, then you figure out whether it's 12 volts or 110 volts. You multiply those together, and it's going to give you your watts. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through a couple of things that we have here in Hamlet to show you what you're going to need to do in your own space using your own electrical appliances to figure this out. Okay. So we have some lights in Hamlet. They're light strips that go along the top of our camper here inside, and they are 8 watts a piece. We have 2 of them. So 8 watts for each light strip times 2 times the number of hours that we use them in a day. So depending on the time of year, we run our lights anywhere from 3 to 6 hours. In the summertime, we don't need light in the evening as much, but in the wintertime like now, the lights are going on around 6 o'clock, maybe even 5 o'clock. So we're going to run them for an average about 4.5 hours a day, okay? So to figure out our watt hours, we take our watts times 2, because we have 2 of them, times the hours we use them per day. And this is going to come to 72, I'm going to abbreviate WH for watt hours. Are you guys generally following along with this? Okay. Okay, so let's move on to the fan. Now the fan is a good example of we knew our amps because the product was labeled as 1.9 amps. It's a 12-volt DC appliance, so we were able to calculate that together. Now, we don't run our fan 8 hours every single day, but we need to know what our maximum wattage is going to be. So in the summertime when it's hot, we're not necessarily running it during the day. We're not in here that much during the day, but at night we want to stay cool because we don't have an air conditioner in here. And it actually does a phenomenal job of keeping us pretty cool. So we might run it for 8 hours at night to stay cool. So we have to multiply our amps times our volts times our hours, and in the summertime, we may use 183 watt hours. Read my writing. 183 watt hours there using that fan. Now let's talk about our immersion blender. Now, if you watch our cooking seminar, you're going to see we love to cook. And we occasionally bring out an immersion blender so that we can make pesto or sauces or soups or things like that. Okay. This is a high wattage appliance. This is 150 watts. That's a biggie. Not huge, because plenty are bigger than that, but it's a high wattage appliance. But we're only going to use it for a couple of minutes at a time. So 3 minutes is equal to 0.05 hours. So you just need to convert minutes to hours, and just approximate is good. If you want to go a little high, that's always good, just to make sure that you're going to have that battery storage. So if we multiply 150 watts times 0.05 hours, we're going to get 7.5 watt hours. Okay. Now we have more appliances than this for sure, but this is just to give you an example of what you need to do. And in the resources that are below here is going to be a chart for the kind of the average RV appliances. You can look that up if you can't find the label on your actual appliance. Now, I encourage you to look for that label, because on the chart, for instance, for a coffee maker, it has a wide range. It depends on the type of coffee maker. Is it a 4-cup coffee maker? Is it a 12-cup coffee maker? Is it a Keurig? That sort of thing. They're all going to be very different, and that's going to throw your numbers off. So if you can find that number on the label, on the appliance, or even look it up online, that's going to be easier for you. But that chart is there just in case you need some good averages to work from, okay? All right, so to find our total watt hours, simply, this is basic math. We're going to add up all of these numbers, and 262.5 watt hours is what we're looking at. Now, again, we have more appliances than this, but this should give you the idea of what it is you need to do in your own space. Now, to give you an idea of our battery, we have 600 watt hours of available energy in our 50 amp hour battery. It's a 12 volt battery. So we take 50 amp hours, multiply by 12 volts, and that's going to give us our watt hours, because amps and hours is already in there, and times volts. So you've got all those things in there. And so that's how we end up with our 600 watt hours. And because we have a lithium iron phosphate battery, we can use 80 to 100% of the available watt hours. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later on, but wanted to give you an idea of these numbers and how they equate to your battery storage. Okay,
great,
cool.
Great. And I just wanted to point out that, so because we have a 100 watt panel, if that 100 watt panel is illuminated for 5+ hours a day, we're going to be generating around 500 watts to 600 watts of energy in that 5 to 6 hours. So we're easily able to refill our battery every single day. In fact, because we don't use our battery all the way down to zero every night, we often find that our battery is back up to full at around 10 in the morning, 10, 11 in the morning, especially when we're down here in the Southwest, where sunshine is often abundant, especially during the winter. Now, every situation and every RV is different. There is no one size fits all. There's not even a one size fits all models. We see on the Facebook chats that people say, how much solar do I need for this model of RV? And it's not what the size of your RV is, it's how you use it and how you use the electrical appliances inside the RV that will determine how much you need to build. It's kind of like an HVAC system for your traditional home. It depends on the square footage, it depends on the climate in which you live, and most often it helps how warm you keep it or how cool you keep it in the summertime. And how you use it is going to be the number one factor, but that helps technicians build your system. So if you have a very large RV and if you run everything on electricity instead of using propane for, like, say, making coffee, using a kettle and a French press, or maybe you're running your RV when you're boondocking, you're running your RV off of propane instead of electricity, that can save you some watt hours. But your total watt hours might be in the thousands. If you have a lot of larger electrical appliances, if you want to cook on an induction plate, you might be in the tens of thousands. But the point is that all solar powered systems, from ours, which is very small, to large ones that are huge, they're all scalable. So you can take our same 4 components and apply them to a much larger system. We've seen RVs in the Southwest that have 1,000 watts of solar panels. We've seen 2,000 watts of solar panels, 3,000 watts. These folks are usually snowbirds coming down from the northern states to spend the winter in the Southwest and run everything on solar for very low cost. So with your magic number calculated, your total watts hours calculated, you're well on your way to building a solar system that's going to work for you. So now in the resource down here, if you go to that website and click on resources, you'll find the resources of this particular presentation. You'll find one of our favorite online calculators. So when you have your total watt hours calculated, you can plug it into this calculator, and that'll tell you how many solar panels you need, how many batteries you need. And you can mess around a little bit with, like, say, size of solar panels, because if you're planning to do a roof install, you may have a different footprint, and you may need to use, say, a bigger solar panel paired with a smaller solar panel. You can also mess around with different battery types. So let's say you want to go and invest in lithium iron phosphate. You can get a lot more battery life out of those batteries than you can, say, a wet lead acid. And when you're putting in your location, it's important to remember where you're going to be traveling to and what season you're going to be traveling. If you're going to leave your RV in storage over the winter while you're living in Michigan, then you probably don't need to build a solar panel system that's going to be able to handle winter sunlight hours. You need to build it for the summer. And so a general rule of thumb, if you're traveling in the summer, is about 5 hours of daylight, of full daylight every day. And why is it only 5 in the summer when there's going to be, especially in Michigan, you know, sun comes up at 5 and it goes down at 10. Not all of those hours are adequate battery charging light hitting the solar panel. So we need to use an average of that, those midday hours of about 5 to 6 as an average hours per day. And there's so many different types of solar panels and types of batteries. So there's a lot of decisions that you need to make. And they don't have to be very difficult. You can just see what we're going to describe those different components in just a second. As soon as Sherry's ready to go, she's frantically writing as we describe. But when you're looking at solar panels, you really want to think about, where am I going to put them? Where am I going to store them? We use obviously a portable panel, and it works great for us because we love to put the trailer in the shade and keep the solar panel out in the sun.
Okay, I'm back. I was frantically writing some information up here to walk you through how to make some choices of the different components of your system. So if you are going to, to use, if you're going to, let's start over. For the panel itself, you are going to think about it's rated in watts, okay? So each of these different components are rated differently. So this is rated in watts, and you need to make some considerations as to how big your panel needs to be. So they come in sizes from 50 watt all the way up to 300 watt. As a reminder, ours is 100 watts, okay? There are 3 different types, basically. There are rigid panels, which are the ones that you see on everybody's roofs, whether it be on a house, a cabin, or an RV. It's typically the thick, heavier, very durable, rigid panel. There are also flexible panels, and those flexible panels are designed to fit on curved surfaces. So if the top of your RV has some sort of curvature to it, they can flex up to 280 degrees, actually, which is pretty phenomenal, and still work. They also are designed for like a boat bimini. If you're using this on a sailboat, it can go over the boat bimini and flex over that. So pretty cool. So that's rigid and flexible. And then what we have is portable. And so this is going to be on some sort of extension cord. It has an integrated support to it, so a stand for it that folds down, and then you can fold up the solar panel and store that away. Now you can mix and match these types. We see people put some solar on their roof, rigid or flexible, up on their roof, and then they will also have a portable panel as part of the system. So if they are parked in the shade, they are still getting some wattage coming in from their portable panel that they can put on an extension cord out in the sun. Okay, so that's panels for you and the choices that you're going to have to make. Charge controllers up here. These are going to be rated in amps. Okay, again, solar panels was in watts. Charge controllers is going to be rated in amps. And this is the maximum amps that's going to be coming in from your panels. So let's say you have 2 100-watt panels. You might be having 13.5 amps coming in at any one time. So you need a charge controller larger than the amps coming in from the panels. And if you think you're going to grow your system in the future, if you're going to start small and grow, you might as well get a charge controller that is rated in more amps than you think you need at this current time. Okay. And that's just so you don't have to go buy another charge controller. Now, they come in two different types, PWM and MPPT. Now, PWM stands for pulse width modulation. I'm certain that cleared it up for you. When I first heard pulse width modulation, I was like, who named this thing? Engineers name these things, okay? They're not named for the consumer. So basically what a PWM charge controller does is it allows just a little bit more voltage coming in from the panel to your battery than what your panel can produce. MPPT, this is going to clear it up for you as well. Maximum power point tracking. I actually have to look at it every time because I can't remember what it is.
It's an impressive
that, that they've come up with here. But basically, it kind of boosts the voltage coming in from your panels to your battery via the charge controller. The charge controller does the work there, and it allows a little bit more than what your battery can store at that time. So it does typically make your system 20 to 30% more efficient. But here's a caveat to it. If your system is going to be about 600 to 800 watts or less, really just stick with the PWM, the pulse width modulation charge controller, because they're a lot less expensive and you're not going to get the benefit of that increased efficiency until your system goes beyond 800 to 1,000 watts. Right. You're going to spend some money on that charge controller if you're going with the MPPT. It does some phenomenal things, but again, only for larger systems. PWM is going to be just fine for a smaller system out there. Okay.
So batteries. So when we're talking about vans, RVs, trailers, we are always talking about deep cycle batteries. And there's 4 different types. There is the traditional flooded lead acid, and then there are gel batteries. They are also lead acid batteries, as are the AGM batteries. Those are all in the category of lead acid. There's also lithium iron phosphate batteries, and this is the newest technology in deep cycle batteries.
And you will see it abbreviated. I don't know if everybody can see that. You'll see it abbreviated as LiFePO, so lithium iron phosphate, the different chemical properties.
That's right. Think back to high school chemistry, because this is iron and this is phosphate, or this is phosphorus, and so it's so that's how that is how it is abbreviated. So batteries are always going to be rated in amp hours. I know it's confusing. You've got watts up here, you've got amps here, you've got amp hours here. Just go back to that watts, that amps times volts equals watts, and then times hours is watt hours. That's going to get you your magic number. So we found a lot of resources about batteries, comparing the different types. But there was no like one chart, one article that would compare them all. So we decided that we would make it. And our latest blog for the Renogy website was just this. And we put a chart in there that compares all of the 4 battery types in one convenient place, so you can actually compare apples to apples and not try to make these extrapolations. So you can find that. Again, that blog is in this resource right here. And you can find that most recent battery comparison blog. But I'll save you the trouble of the comparison and skip right to the chase. So if you can afford the upfront investment of the lithium iron phosphate batteries, these are going to save you a lot of money over the lifetime of your RV. Lithium, they last up to 10 years. And that can be 3 to 4 times as longer than a traditional lead acid battery, but it is also 3 to 4 times the cost of that battery.
Upfront, not over the long term. It's actually a lot cheaper in the long term. So it's an upfront investment.
But one of the interesting aspects of lithium is that you can use almost all of the capacity. So when we say we have 600 watts in our system, we can actually use all of those watts down to 0 Whereas in a traditional lead acid battery, you can only use 50% of your battery capacity. So let's say we had a, so our battery is a 50 amp hour battery. That has the same capacity as a 100 amp hour lead acid battery, either in the flooded, gel, or AGM. So the nice thing is you get actually double capacity when you're buying lithium. So you can have smaller batteries, they weigh less, they take up so much less room for the watt hour, and the list of benefits just goes on and on and on. So big recommendation.
Yeah. I don't know if you've ever picked up a car battery before or any sort of deep cycle battery before. I was surprised the first time I picked one up. They are heavy. But these lithium batteries, I mean, you can literally hold them, at least ours, with like 2 fingers. It's super lightweight.
And so inverters, the last component here, these are rated in watts. And if you're going to run anything that has one of these plugs that you would plug right into the outlet at your home, you're going to have that inverter. And what they do is they transfer direct current power, so power that's stored in the battery, into alternating current, and they boost the voltage up to 110 so that these run appropriately. So if you want to size your inverter, you're going to need to figure out what's the total watts that I might use at any one time. So let's say you've got the TV, the sound system, you're running the microwave, somebody kicks on a blender and a vacuum cleaner all at the same time.
Too much electricity.
Too much there. You need to calculate what that wattage is and say, okay, this is the max watts that I could ever possibly use, and make sure that you're not going to blow the fuse on the inverter. So you need to have it slightly higher than that. So let's say all of those things add up to 1700 watts. You're going to want an inverter at 2000 watts. So even though you'll rarely push it to that extreme, it's safer and it's better to have a little bit more inverter than you need. Now, it's not better to have a lot more inverter, because then you're going to be overpowering that inverter, and it's going to be wasting efficiency of your system.
Another way to look at it too is it's going to be approximately equal to the solar wattage you have.
That's right.
So if you have 1,000 watts of solar on your roof, you could probably get away with 1,000-watt inverter. Though a lot of people have larger ones. But if you go too large, this is one of those situations you don't want to go too large, because it can actually draw off your battery, draw down your battery. And so you want it just larger than you need it, not too big. Make sense?
And the best kind of inverters are pure sine wave inverters. And you don't need to know what that does, other than the fact that it most closely resembles the energy, the alternating current that comes into the house during your household appliances, so that it tries to make that look the same, and it helps protect your appliances as you go. There are other chargers, inverters, that are inverter chargers. And these are inverters that do the same job, but while you are plugged into shore power, so let's say you've pulled into a state park, they have electricity, you can actually charge up your batteries while you're plugged in. So this one can both operate as an inverter, but it can also charge up your batteries in the other direction. So it's kind of a cool technique to have.
So say you want to leave that state park after you've been there for a couple of days, and you want to go boondock for a few days. Well, your batteries will be charged up if you have an inverter charger. Okay.
Okay, so there's a question right there. Don Tyler says, how do you calculate or know the amps coming from your panel wattage for the charge controller? So that's a really great question. So even though your system is going to be 12 volts and the panel is sort of rated at a 12 volt because it's charging up a 12 volt system, the voltage that comes from the panel, we need to think about in terms of what's the maximum voltage. And if you're using a PWM charge controller, the maximum voltage that's going to come from the panel is going to be around 15 and a half, so 15.5 volts coming into the system. If you take that voltage and you divide by the total wattage of the panel. So let's say we'll use our panel, 100 watts. We know the maximum number of volts that could come into the panel, 15.5. We're going to do 100 divided by 15.5, and that gets us around, what is that, 5.5?
It's 3.5.
No, it's more than that. It's between 5 and 6 amps. I could do it right here if I pulled out the calculator.
Oh yeah, 6.5.
6.5 amps. Thank you. I thought that's what it was.
There's too many numbers running through my head.
A lot of numbers. Yeah. Thank you, Don. So you know that from one 100-watt panel at the maximum voltage, you're going to get 6.5 amps. So if you have 200 at that same maximum voltage, you're going to have 13 amps. So if you're running a 200 watt hour system, a 200 watt solar array, you're going to need to have a charge controller that is larger than 13 amps.
Now, a little clarification on this is there's different ways to set up your panels. So there's some installation considerations as well. You can set up your panels in series, or you can set up your panels in parallel. And there's more detail on this in the DIY article that we have in the resources below on installation. But if you set them up in series, you're going to boost your voltage. If you set them up in parallel, you're going to boost your amperage or your amps, okay? So if you have 200 watts set up in parallel, that's going to boost your amperage and it's going to double it. If you set them up in series, it's going to boost your voltage and it's going to double your voltage. So it depends on what you're after and what you want. But again, there's a lot, that's a little bit higher level physics, and that's in the DIY article, but that's Solar 102 instead of Solar 101. Right. So, but I just want to throw that out there since that question came out, so that at least you have an idea of what we're talking about when we talk about series and parallel when you read the article. Okay?
Right. And if you think about it, go back to that water analogy. If you're gonna boost your voltage by connecting them in series, you're going to increase the pressure of your system, right? And if you're going to connect them in parallel, you're going to boost the amperage, which is going to boost the flow. All right. So the only consideration there is really the wiring and the gauge of wiring and how long that wiring needs to be in order to be safe to not get overly hot and potentially cause a melt or a fire. That would be what we want to avoid when we're doing this. Cool.
Absolutely. And we have been talking about simple 12-volt systems. People have moved into 24 and 48-volt systems now in larger RVs and larger off-grid cabins. And they're pretty cool. Again, that's probably Solar 103, but that gives you an idea when you see stuff like that. We've been talking cool. Strictly 12-volt for you.
Great.
Okay. Okay, Derek, will you go ahead and bring up that, I think it's the last slide.
The last slide, there you go.
There it is.
Cool.
Yep, there it is, perfect. And so as ambassadors with Renogy, we do get a small percentage of a sale if you do buy products from Renogy, so we thank you for that. But the cool part is you get 10% off. So if you're gonna buy $1,000 worth of solar equipment, you're gonna save $100. And the way to do that is to use our affiliate link. I can never remember which way to point. Will you point at it, Hutch? Thank you.
Down there.
It's kind of opposite
Down
for
there.
us. Yeah, there we go. So go ahead and use the resource guide. There's an affiliate link there. And if you put in our promo code CANLIFE, that will get you the 10% off. And it gives us a little bump to put more gas in our vehicle, food in our cooler, and just keep us on the road. So if you're wondering where we came up with Can Life, if you haven't figured that out, there's the big van life movement. And because we live in a canned ham style trailer, we tease that it's called Can Life instead of van life. So that's where that came from. Anyway, so please use that. And if you have any questions, of course, I think Hutch is going to give you.
Yeah, so go ahead. You know, this is easy to remember, freedominacan.com. That's our website. You can get to all of our social media. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And we'd love to hear from you. If you want to contact us directly, please do so at freedominacan1957@gmail.com, and we will get back to you. I see a gentleman is joining us from Fayetteville, Texas. We're working with him on his solar system right now.
Hey, Gerard.
And by the way, there's never any pressure to buy.
No.
We are not trying to do a high pressure anything like that. We hope that it's our goal to sort of rid all campgrounds of noisy generators. We just want them gone because there's a better way. And generators are great to have in an emergency. They're great to have as a backup, but there are other ways, and with a little bit of planning and prior arrangement, you can get by. So what I'd love to
doing your homework,
that's right.
So you get the solar system that fits
that works for
your
you. Right.
electrical needs. We can't emphasize that enough.
That's right. And since there's a little bit of a delay in the chat function, I'm going to go ahead and ask, while I thank our sponsors and get us out of, go ahead and type in your questions because we'll be on the stream here for a couple more minutes, just taking questions and seeing what it is that you guys want to talk about. And go ahead and post those in the chat box and we'll get those up there. And again, I just wanted to reach out to the great folks at Showspan who bring the Grand Rapids Camper Travel and RV show together. We have been doing this now. This is our fourth time presenting, and we just feel like they're old friends. We all feel a part of the Showspan family, and it's really awesome to be back. And I look forward to when we can be back in person and seeing you all. Also like to reach out to thank Renogy. They are our main sponsor for the year, and we've been with them for a number of years. We love their products, and we love the folks at the company. We've got a really great relationship. It's really fun to, when we have a technical question, that we can pop it right to an engineer there and try to get a straightforward answer. Even help answer your questions when we don't know the answer, because there's a lot of things we don't know about this technology.
But you helped us learn. So
that's
thank
right.
You for that.
Exactly. Our other sponsors and supporters are The Dirt. If you want to find campgrounds, The Dirt is the #1 resource on the internet. They have the largest database of campgrounds nationwide, and the pro version of their app is available again in this resource link down there in the right left-hand corner of the screen to get 10% off downloading The Dirt Pro. Wheelers, if you are in the market for an RV and you don't know what you want, you can rent before you buy, and Wheelers will help you do that. They're kind of like the Expedia and Airbnb for RV rentals.
It's a great way to figure out if you want a motorhome, Class A, Class B,
Yep.
if you want a travel trailer, how big of a travel trailer. Just rent a couple and get a sense of space, and that'll help you decide what you're going to buy. So, because not everybody wants to go vintage. That's for sure.
That's right. And we bought ours off of eBay, sight unseen, a few pictures, and we just lucked out because as Sherry said, he has good bones.
He has good bones. Exactly. Cool.
All right. Any questions? We'll just
none have popped up on the screen.
Yeah, we haven't seen any yet, so I know there is a little bit of a delay, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
And very good to see you, Sherry, as well. My namesake in my hometown spells her name exactly like I do. So Sherry, it's great to have you with us. We miss you. The Dirt, yes, just what I needed to know. Yeah, just type in, or you can go directly to our website, freedominacan.com, and that'll get you information about The Dirt. We've got a whole page on resources for road life there, and that's a quick and easy way to get to that link.
Mm-hmm. Well, if there's no other questions, apparently we covered everything.
Or we overwhelmed you, one of the two. We have a tendency to do that, even though we try to make it simple. So.
We like to talk a blue streak for a straight hour. So our next presentation at 3 p.m. will be our camp cooking presentation. We had a lot of fun with that. And we put that right before the dinner hour so that you will get
nice and
hungry
yeah.
And want to go get some backcountry flatbread. That's what we love to do. Yeah. Tomorrow we'll be back at 1 p.m. We'll be back at 1 p.m. for our tips and tricks for exploring our national parks. And at 3 p.m. we'll be back here to redo this Solar 101 presentation. So if you have any more questions, you want to see this again, you just want to repeat the information, it's great to do that. So we got a question from Chris Vanderwilt. How do you make money?
That's one of the other questions we get all the time. So we are writers, photographers. We're what's known as digital nomads at this point of our lives, and educators. So we continue to do that. So we write, we make videos. Renogy does sponsor us, so that's quite helpful to add to the pocketbook. We also blog for other organizations, and they'll pay us per blog as an example. And in addition to all of that, we have done seasonal work in the past. So we're located in one place for the season. And we are both environmental educators, and Hutch has a background in outdoor education, and I do as well, but he has more of a career background in that. And so for the last few summers, we have actually spent the entire summer on the coast of Maine. We're going back this summer. Hopefully COVID will be settling down a little bit at that point. And he's going to be leading sea kayak tours on the coast of Maine. I know, poor baby, right? And
somebody's got to do it.
I am a naturalist educator that knows the coast of Maine quite well now, has spent a number of years there. And I provide the naturalist education. He does as well, but that's the main focus of my job. And I have done that for a couple of years at a campground in the last couple of years, but we're working with an old friend who started his own business this coming summer. So that is one way we make money, odd jobs, things like that along the way. But in general, we can live on about a quarter of what we used to make working and supporting a home and 2 cars and all of that. So we don't need to make very, very much in order to support this lifestyle.
And I want to just re-emphasize that point, that there are a lot of people like us who are doing the digital nomad life, and especially with so many jobs going to virtual or online or remote learning, remote teaching, remote all this. So many families have decided to hit the road. I think that can intimidate people who are looking at this lifestyle and say, well, I'm not a writer. I'm not a speaker. I can't start doing this. I can't start making money as an affiliate.
Are you an accountant? You can do that
exactly.
from the road.
Do you know how to clean a toilet? Do you know how to plumb a sink? Because there are campgrounds, there are national parks, there are so many places that you can apply your skill set to work in a seasonal capacity. And if you need to make more money than we need to live on, you can work one season in the northern states during the summer, and then you can travel to the southern states and get another seasonal job, and just continue to rotate these experiences that fit you. There's so much demand out there. I can't emphasize enough the seasonal opportunities. And if you want to find them, there's information on our website. Thank you about how to do that. I was going to list them all, but they're already there.
It's all information on our website about how to both do seasonal work as well as volunteer work. Exactly. And the reason why I bring that up is because that helps reduce your overall overhead as well. So you have some place to park, usually for free. You're not paying for a campground. Maybe you're volunteering on an organic farm. We did that this spring, working with food security, and we parked somewhere near Boone, North Carolina, actually. And we helped out. We had all the veggies that we could possibly eat as well. So all that information, freedominacan.com. If you find the resources for road life, it'll have that information in there. So we kind of try to put it all in one place for you. But we do a whole presentation on our life on the road. So that's the brief answer. We could go on about this for an hour.
Yeah.
So
well, thanks so much. If there's no more questions, we'll just see you at the next presentation.
Yeah, join us at 3:00 Eastern time for gourmet cooking and baking.
And bring your appetite.
Yeah, bring your appetite.